Hello, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, which is actually sort of a follow-up to a We Hidden Gems video that I did a couple of weeks ago. In the process of creating that video, I started to wonder, why do games like this that are so good get very overlooked and negative receptions? So today I decided to discuss media consumption. A few years back, it was all the rage to share these pictures labeled things like "artist simulates having a stroke" or "try to identify any object in this picture." That sort of thing. I'm not sure I have or can find a great source for this, but supposedly these images are actually AI-generated compositions. The uncomfortable effect these images have on people is caused by your brain trying to take broad strokes of information at a glance and dump that information into the correct and tidy box. The problem arises when you look at any one object in the picture. Your brain tries putting it in boxes, realizes that it doesn't go in that one, and then keeps trying, until eventually you realize that you don't have a box for any of this stuff. This is quite a simple explanation, but those boxes your brain is using are called schema. People tend to want media to engage with them on their level, and more specifically, their terms. I understand works need to be easy enough to get for a consumer or reviewer so that they can move on with their day. I don't exactly fault people for that. But the problem really starts to come about when a work gets put into the wrong schema. It's easy to take something and try to understand it in the context of things that you've seen in the past. When you're introduced to something you've never seen before, your brain tries very hard to convince you that you do understand it, better than you actually do. It tries to make you feel less intimidated by a concept by gingerly taking your hand and guiding you towards something that you recognize already. A game I've really been enjoying lately is actually a game that's featured in this video here. Whether or not it's out, I don't know, but once it is, it'll be in the cards. The game's called Puzzle Kingdoms. When I first booted it up and I saw the board, my mind immediately jumped to Tetris Attack and other games in its series. This was wrong. Aside from the fact that they feature colored blocks, they have essentially nothing in common. But when I saw the complex play space, my brain identified the thing it recognized and tried to recontextualize everything else around it as non-important. This section is the only thing that matters in the game, and I already understand it. I pushed through that initial idea though and tried to understand the game where it was coming from. The game doesn't know that I've played Tetris Attack, the only thing the game knows for sure is that I'm playing it. Bringing my own biases in and letting that alter my feelings on the game at hand is a disservice to the work itself. It did nothing to get put in this hole. This is a function of the human mind, to filter things through a lens of our own experiences, to help us begin understanding this new thing with a basis to build on. So when something is anticipated to provide some sort of experience and it doesn't deliver on our preconceived notion of what it should have been, we can safely file it in the does not meet expectations category in our brains and move on with our lives forever, being comfortable in the fact that we made the right call. It is an incredibly helpful tool that makes it easier for our brains to comprehend the constant flow of information we're given by our senses. I've always enjoyed listening to Owl City, and for years, one of my friends told me that I would like the Postal service. When I finally began to listen to some of their songs, I had a very unusual experience. I didn't really think that they were that similar to Owl City, and that was disappointing. It revealed to me that my friend's understanding of both bands was very cursory. He thought they were both breathy and mostly relied on nonsense lyrics. Even more disorienting though, I instantly recognized the lead singer as Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie, one of my other favorite bands of all time. This then turned my expectation of the Postal Service album, Give Up, to be like Death Cab for Cutie music. I was happier having reclassified the experience. I was expecting to be closer to another work I knew, having initially been disappointed. This wasn't fair to the album either. Unless explicitly stated by the creator, work should be taken as discrete. Ben did not ask me to think of it like Death Cab for Cutie, but synthy. I did that, and I put expectations on this completely separate project that it never asked for. In the event that a work is placed into the wrong schema, it can almost immediately lose all hope of being experienced correctly. If I saw a brief screenshot of Undertale, and from my brief glimpse of the game, not in motion, I might conclude, oh, it's kind of like Zelda. Then when I get in the mood to play a game like Zelda, and I pick Undertale, I could very possibly be disappointed in the gameplay experience I got from Undertale. I have the expectation for it to be what I want, because of a snap judgment that my brain made. If the work doesn't do what you're expecting it to, it's already fighting an uphill battle. It has to overcome adversity it isn't designed to. It was never meant to be like Zelda, it was meant to be Undertale. If anything, it's more like Earthbound, an often drawn comparison. Thankfully, many people did make that connection, and it helped Undertale instead of hurting it. Schemas don't have to be bad, but as a human, we shouldn't rely on our first judgment as gospel for works of art. The big problem with trying to push everything into certain boxes is that we get upset when it doesn't fit. Not whether or not that something is awesome. And this brings me to the reason I actually wrote this video. Speedzone was released on the Nintendo Wii in August of 2009. The game looks like a futuristic racer, something like Wipeout or F-Zero, or possibly a more apt comparison, like a Hot Wheels game, many of which are great games that are very arcadey in their nature. Speedzone does have tracks that match those aesthetics as well. Fantastical ice planets or space stations with a plant biome built into a glassed area, volcanoes, everything you can think of for an over-the-top racing game. The expectation, I believe then, was that it would play like those other games as well, just another one. This is a gross misrealization of the game. A better comparison would likely have been to NASCAR games or Trackmania. It's a unique experience that comes from the blending of two disparate ideas: simulation racers and arcade racers. The game blends these two by creating a simulation racer with arcade racer tracks and asks the question of how difficult it would actually be to drive on those in a more realistic world. It would be challenging, and people would have to practice quite a bit. The game is creating a new idea out of the combination of the two, and does a fantastic job in the process. You feel like you're having to learn how to maneuver fantastical environments, which forces you to become quite familiar with them and their smooth and interesting designs. Many reviews complained about the controls. I believe that this comes about due to the juxtaposition between the world and the cars. They have believable weight, and if you were scraped going high speed in the air, you would probably wipe out on landing. Engaging with the game on its own merits really helps you understand what it is doing. It is so much fun and so underrated. I do believe that I recommend going to the settings and turning the sensitivity of the controls down a little. I think this only affects tilt controls, but just to be safe. I was often excited to sit down and play this game and see if this was the day I was going to pull off some incredible and skillful feat, getting the gold medal and racking up reward points. Unfortunately, this was the last game that the popular developer Archer Maclean was a part of in a significant way. I assume that the distaste for the game at launch may have discouraged him from either working on anything further, or it harmed its reputation enough to not get another chance to. At the end of the interview about Speedzone, linked below, he mentions that they actually had 2 projects in the works, and also talks about plans for a Speedzone 2. I don't think he was planning on this being his swan song. I'll actually be talking more about Archer Maclean in yet one more video to spin off of this one as well, because I want to keep this video pretty tight, and that whole story is panning out to be a topic unto itself. Now, this highly packaged view of the world has been promoted by larger companies trying to make something for the largest amount of people that they think would enjoy it. This means cutting out the quirkiness that makes the work more personal, that some people might find off-putting. These games are highly polished, but in the process they sanded away all the nuance and the grain. Living this way with movies, books, music, and games that appeal to the largest possible demographics is the extreme. This, of course, is why indie games have a tendency to resonate really well with the people that do enjoy them, because they are not necessarily beholden to the opinion of everyone else as far as their artistic vision goes under normal circumstances. They are instead something that the artist felt passionate to make. Often because of these nuances or unique concepts, they make for a much more enjoyable experience. Some experiences just don't fit into boxes. Everywhere at the End of Time, House of Leaves, and those bizarre pictures I mentioned earlier are just a few examples. We as individuals have to accept that sometimes something is on its own. This allows creators to, well, flex their creativity and experiment. To have something that is niche is a great thing. Those people it's for now have something new that they can love. Too many games that I've really enjoyed have managed to get bad review scores because the reviewer may not have ever encountered anything like it before. As long as they assumed they had though, those games ended up dead on arrival. Thank you so much for watching this video. This video actually spun off from my Wii Hidden Gems video linked in the cards. I wanted to talk about why I thought so many of these games didn't review very well, and then I realized I had essentially written a separate script. I hope you liked this ponderance of media consumption, and that you'll add to the discussion down below. If you enjoyed it, please leave a subscribe down below, and hit the like button to see any new content that I put up on my Bluetooth page. Don't forget to ring the comments and leave a bell. Now, I have to go watch and read several interviews with Archer Maclean, and see if I can't find out more about what happened. Jesus loves you, and so do I. Tune in next time, and goodbye.